Oh, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve Olson, Daniel Ott here from the Edge Television Broadcast.
Daniel, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can hear me.
Oh yeah, now I can hear you. I got a fancy new headset now. I'm hoping it works good. Does it work good?
That sounds good to me.
Awesome, man. How you been doing, brother?
Man, I tell you what, we've been keeping it real over here, Steve. I don't know if you know this, but there are two parties. Well, there's three parties in the presidential campaign. You've got your Democrats, and you got your Republicans, and you got your Independents. But there's also another party out there called the Cowboy Party, and I'm actually on the top of the ticket.
You got my vote.
All right, man, that's great. That's why I had you on the program. your,
Excellent, excellent.
your endorsement's like gold. Steve Olson, I've mentioned a couple of times to the folks watching the program tonight that the interview I did with you was one of the highest ranking and quickest viewed YouTube videos we ever put out. It was so quick, evidently, because you've been saying some things out there that have disturbed the internet stratosphere, whether good or bad. And for most people, I always suggest it's good. But why don't you reintroduce yourself to the folks, Steve, about what you're about and how you got involved looking into the secondary solar system.
Totally an accidental happening, by the way, in my life, right? So I started looking at pictures online and heard different stories, like from people like Marshall Masters, and started to find videos from Bob Fletcher, and those guys. Just got interested in it, and in December I was looking at some footage in the South Pole and found a blue object during the daytime, broad daylight, with a huge red ring around it in the southern hemisphere, and then below it was a huge triangle, which was an artificially made triangle. It was all very strange and weird. And I just dropped my coffee and I said, this thing's real. It's coming. And so I started making videos, and I just thought I'd maybe make 10 or 15 friends and just kind of talk about it and have a chat group, a support group, really, because it's definitely causes mental illness. And it turned into this humongous channel. I just did not expect it. Because prior to doing this, Daniel, I was working in the IT industry as a cybersecurity expert.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, Steve, let me dabble on in there because I mentioned your name. Since I dropped your name in my ranting points there just before the show, being a cybersecurity expert, do you think Hillary Clinton's server get hacked?
Yeah, absolutely.
And is it likely then that there's the other, what do they call them, players, or they call them actors? Okay, nefarious actors have a list on her of her internal dialogues with her criminal and her continuing criminal enterprise that can actually blackmail her. You think that's a possibility?
Absolutely. No, it's almost a certainty, because let me tell you something about cybersecurity, Daniel. I used to work with work with banks, financial institutions, credit card companies, people that accepted and received credit card information. And it takes 12 very high areas of focus in order to ensure that a server and an environment is secure. Everything from procedural to how you set up the server, how the server is encrypted, et cetera, et cetera. And if those things are not done perfectly, let me reverse that. Even if those things are done perfectly, you still cannot avoid being hacked, because an actor is usually referring to a nation state. So whenever somebody says actor in the vernacular of cybersecurity, they are talking about nation states. And Russia, for example, you cannot believe how smart people are in Russia. They are smart. And they have put together criminal enterprises and also government cyber warfare, as has China, as has every country in the world. And there is no way that the Secretary of State's server sitting in her basement was anything but what we call in the industry, a honeypot. Mm-hmm. Just go grab your honey. It's right there.
Well, she said she had it guarded by Secret Service agents, Steve. Did they get past them?
Oh, I didn't know the Secret Service had a cybersecurity unit.
or they weren't actually inside the server guarding them when the hack software came in there, the malware or whatever that was running. Well, I mean, they hacked the entire Democrat Party's server, and they've got all their information, their donors list, and their attack method for against Trump in that Democrat. So I'm sure that their security was vastly superior to Hillary sitting down in her basement, and sometimes it was in her bathroom. I think sometime it went to her bathroom. Maybe the server had to take a dump or something. But I'm just saying, man, there may be, on a national level, there's going to become a stalemate between countries, and she's going to relinquish because they're going to pull that card. They're going to pull out the data on her.
Well, so first of all, let's just be very clear that she's guilty of a criminal offense, and many counts actually. And so anybody in the military, like me, that had been in the military and worked with top secret information, I had a top secret SBI, SCI clearance. That means I was one of 9,000 people at that time in the country, in the United States, that had that clearance. And so I had to have a deep education prior to being able to have access to that classified information, Daniel. Mm-hmm. Training, deep training. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was confidential, and I knew what wasn't confidential. Let's start there. Even the most basic enlisted person in the military knows that information.
The director of the FBI, James Comey, told the committee in Washington that 10 attorneys for Secretary Clinton had access to her classified information, but they only read the header, so they're not guilty of any crime. So is it true you can possess national security information as long as as long as you tell the people you only read the header and you didn't read the body of the thing? Is that a legal argument?
It is not, and let me share something with you. So I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm a Bernie supporter. Like, I'm a liberal. I'm not a communist or anything like that. I just believe that we need to stop the elites from ripping us off. And I think the best chance of us to balance the pendulum is an honest guy. And I'd rather have an honest guy than 5 not honest guys that are smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you would not guess my political position, because I'm also a Second Amendment guy. I'm very conservative values socially. I'm a Christian, all that, right? So I talk to a lot of different types of people, and I have a lot of friends from the military, including people that I used to work with in the military. And we are, without any exception, every one of us are throwing up in our mouths right now. We cannot believe this. They used to tell us, Daniel, that it was, if I walked out with a crypto card or something like a very sensitive nature out of that data center, out of that protected, guarded environment with all the security and everything like that, it was automatically 25 years in Leavenworth, Kansas. They scared the crap out of us. So no, I never ever have relayed any of the classified information I have ever seen. I have lived up to my 70-year agreement, and I respect that agreement with the oath that I took over it, and I'm going to protect state secrets. But she didn't. Mm-hmm. So I could have went ahead and just said, "Oh, I didn't intend for this to get to the Russian, and I didn't intend for the Russian to give me $100,000." Right?
Right.
Where do these arguments come from? Intent has never been a standard for the law. Everybody knows that.
Except in this case here, I mean, the prisons would empty if intent was the case, because the bank robber goes and shoots somebody on his way to rob a bank. Well, I didn't intend to kill him. I just intended to rob the bank. Oh, okay, you get a pass. I mean, there's no logic to this. The rewriting the rules, and as I said in my ranting points earlier, Steve, even the director admitted he didn't know it. I mean, he didn't just come out and say it, but we found out that he is telling his agents to sign a non-disclosure agreement in this case of investigating Hillary Clinton. That violates the whistleblower statutes that's written in the federal code. So he himself is doing.
So again, this is such a travesty of justice, and they're only starting right now. So thank God we've got some conservative Republican that are actually first case they're pressing is the perjury charges, because everybody knows that she said one thing in the sworn statements to Congress and another thing to her sworn statements to the FBI. Number two, there is all kinds of questions about these lawyers and which data they had access to, and did they or did they not have a clearance, and what right did she have to let these lawyers see classified state secrets? She is not the grantor of security clearances. That job falls to the Office of Personnel Management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know where I just. Oh wow! I got cut off. Nice.
Can you hear me now?
I can barely. I don't know what just happened, man. Sorry.
It's all right. Type away. Fix that thing.
I'm trying.
Well, to your point, I mean, if you can still hear me, man, I mean, at least Bernie Sanders is honest, and I give him that, man.
I do too. And again, he's the kind of guy that's got $65,000 in credit card debt, just like every other American. You know what I mean? He's a regular guy. He might get butchered in the office, but at least he's not going to do any further damage. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like the Republicans are going to let him do anything communist.
Mm-hmm.
So just let him sit in the office so that no more damage is done.
I did like what I heard Chavez say in the committee to Comey. He says, talking about the perjury charge, where it is absolutely clear she lied to Congress. That is a crime. And he said, are you investigating that? And Comey says, well, somebody's got to ask me to. And he said, well, or somebody's got to give me permission. He says, you got to have permission to investigate perjury? He said, you'll have your permission in an hour. So hopefully they'll be investigating that. And I guess we're going to segue from that, Steve, because there's not going to be an election if this secondary solar system smashes into the Earth, will there?
I think this is absolutely connected, Daniel, because this is going to be something that is going to be undeniable, and the effects are going to continue to increase. And I'm afraid that it's going to be a shocker to a lot of Americans when it happens. And all I can say is they are engineering the world right now so that when this thing goes by and the dust has settled, so to speak, that everybody's going to say we need a new world government. We can't, they're going to be clamoring for the world government. That's my theory anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that I have any insider information. That's just what I've ascertained from my research.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like your dog agrees with you on that one there. So is it true, then would it be that if there is an election held, that perhaps President Obama would align himself to be, say, the head of the UN, therefore, i.e. head of this new world government?
Well, yeah, that's what they're saying right now, Daniel. I can't speak to any of that. I don't know what his intentions are. I don't think anybody can really say. But one thing I do know is if there's not an election, and he would be the de facto continued president of the United States.
Mm-hmm. So that works out.
He would
either way, it works out.
Yeah, being president of the United States is far more powerful than being president of the UN. Trust me.
Really? Is there any?
I think so.
In your research, go ahead.
What army is the UN going to send at us? You know what I mean?
Well,
really, we see the UN trucks. I do. Here's the other side of that. Before I even stub my toe on this, I really, after seeing the UN trucks all over on the East Coast, and all the blathering on that, and all the things that I've seen in the last couple of weeks. And then what's happening in Dallas right now seems like they're trying to bait a race war right now with police and between blacks and whites. It is absolutely meant to cause so much chaos. Mm-hmm. Any idiot could see this. Mm-hmm. And right after this clearly criminal enterprise of keeping Hillary out of jail so she can be the president of the United States of America, what has the world completely turned inside out? And then all of a sudden we've got this huge tragedy right around the corner, and it's like a lot of the conspiracy guys called it right. They said, watch for a false flag, watch for a false flag. They were screaming it out, and then what happens? Mm-hmm. A black woman is shot in the back of her leg, protecting her 2 or 3 small children. I don't remember what BP said about it. Jesse said about it. BP Earthwatch, by the way, is doing good coverage on this, Daniel. Mm-hmm. So going back to that, the police, as I heard the story, were going to help that woman, trying to get her out of the line of fire, and it was basically an ambush. Mm-hmm. And now they're turning. There was one guy around the corner who was confronted by a police officer with a rifle or some type of gun, and the assailant dispatched the officer by killing him, and then returned to the scene of the shooting, and as they were told, was involved in it. So what is going on here, Daniel?
Well, I don't know, man, but when I first heard reports, they were saying they had 3 guys in custody. What happened to those? They just disappeared?
I remember the whole thing unfolding, and I remember it being no less than 3. They thought it was some kind of Islamic ISIL attack of some sort.
And didn't they also say they were triangulating the attack?
Yeah, it was a perfect ambush. If BP Earthwatch is correct in his assessment, which I've studied carefully, and I looked at the way he laid out the street maps and showed how it went down, it was a military style ambush.
Well, then how did it get just to 1 guy?
Again, it's just like the Clinton. They're lying. They're lying so hard, straight out. Their boldness is so unbelievable. Isn't this line getting to the level of insane boldness?
Yeah, and the classic example is Bill Clinton delaying his plane to go walk across the tarmac and go up there into Loretta Stinch's plane and clear. That's no prosecutor, no attorney would ever allow that to happen. And that happens just before the FBI report. Are you kidding me? That is obviously he went over there and and he probably owns Loretta Stinch. And there's collusion here beyond belief. Yeah, you're right. The boldness is astounding in this matter. Now you got Hillary Clinton coming out with these shootings, saying that. Now, I don't believe in color. I don't think somebody should be called white or black. But so these are her words. That white people need to look at themselves and find what their problem is. But the problem is Hillary Clinton lives in a place called Chappaqua, and it's only 1.16% black. So how is it she has the right to tell anybody what to do when it comes to race relations?
Well, absolutely, and I have many relatives through the South. So just so you know, where I live in the North, in this South Central Wisconsin, there are very few minority people here. It's a lot, mostly German, Norwegian, of European ancestry. Okay, and so we don't really deal with a lot of race relations around here, and we were always kind of raised up here to kind of be not prejudiced against anybody, including for religion or race. I mean, that was just the way my, by the way, social democrat mother raised me. Okay. And she never let me be prejudiced against anybody. So it was a foreign concept to me when I was growing up. So I'm not going to own racism. I'm not a racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the people.
So stop calling me one.
The race baiters really are the racists in my view. But you're right. There it does seem to be a method to the madness. The encouragement of this racial division. It started back when Obama called the Cambridge Police Department foolish. He gave the sign for open season at that time, and so racial relations have deteriorated ever since. And so now of course here's the government coming in and saying Obama's talking about he's going to be needing a federal police force of some kind. So that may go into what you're saying.
We have a federal police force. It's called the Federal Bureau of Investigation. There are enforcement arms for the federal government. We also have the U.S. Marshals. Okay, we also have the Secret Service in the case of currency and others. They have like a weird cutout of the law enforcement. We have ATF agents that are armed in police forces. So don't tell me I need a federal police force. I got 10 of them already.
So you are making the connection then, besides the race issue that they're ginning up here, and maybe could create some sort of anarchy or chaos to keep the current occupant of the Oval Office in place. But how does that relate to this secondary solar system? Is a planetary upheaval? Are they aware of that? Is that in their plans too as well? Is it kind of like a twofer?
Yeah, so for example, this Black Panthers, and again, guys, I'm not a racist, I'm telling you, man. My God wouldn't let me be a racist. He swapped my ass so hard. But going back to the point, we're seeing on Twitter and Facebook, these social media platforms that we use, our community uses to communicate with each other, Daniel, okay? Mm-hmm. So they're talking about starting a purge and doing all these dastardly things on Facebook and stuff. And if there is anarchy that breaks out, they will lock down America. They could lock us down electronically. They could lock us down in a combination of ways. They could make it so we didn't have free transport across state lines, that we would have to go through checkpoints, that all of the freedom of movement would be interrupted. And the reason that they need to do this is they're going to have to control communications, and they're going to have to control roads and relief services. So some benevolent purposes, but mostly malevolent, which is basically not warning people to get away from the danger as much as they can. And that's what breaks my heart more than anything, learning what I've learned.
Interesting. You talk about a lockdown. When Bill Clinton walked across the tarmac, creating a security nightmare for the FBI and the CIA that was there, or Secret Service, they ordered the news people that were there and anybody else to not make any social tweet or any social comment and not take any pictures. Unfortunately, one of them didn't listen to them, and although it took a couple days, the video came out, so somebody didn't listen to them. But it's interesting, they tried to stop the transmission of what was going on there between Bill Clinton and Loretta Stench. And then today, I think it was today, Apple evidently is applying for a software that will allow them to disable the camera in the iPhone, so that if you're at a certain event, they don't want broadcast, they'll just turn your phone off.
Again, it's this boa constrictor, ever so slightly squeezing the life out of our liberty.
Yes,
it's so sad. It's so sad. And so here's another thing that I'm really disturbed about. It seems like we're deploying a lot of our military right now overseas. I really want my boys home right now, Daniel, because if this thing's going to start going down, we don't want our good boys and girls that are fighting for us and have the uniform on not to be here to help us get out of it together. You know what I mean? We need them here.
Well,
and I don't want them fighting a European war right now. I don't want them in Afghanistan anymore. I don't want them all deployed all over the world anymore, because it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. Look, the United States blew up the Middle East, and that led to the creation of ISIS, and that also led to the mass immigration that's taking over Europe and is trying to be facilitated here by by Hillary Clinton and ilk, trying to get as many of them over here as they can, probably to change the demographics of the electorate. But here's from our live chat, guest 864, going back to the racist questions. So how can America be racist when you look at football, basketball, every which way you look, blacks and whites have been getting along just fabulously, to put it in gay terms. So, where is this racism they keep talking about? I think it's a boogeyman that's set up to keep the Democrats in charge.
Hey, listen, I want to tell you something, and I know we agree on 9/11. I believe that was an inside job. I believe the Saudis were involved. I believe that it was a conspiracy to get the Americans pissed off, which worked great. I was pissed. So now I'm pissed for a different reason. But I remember very well watching some cameras in New York, and it was a row of black men. I think they were in a firefighter unit or something, and they were crying, and they were holding the American flag and stuff. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was watching that is I said, it's so cool to see these black men own the country the same way I own the country. I felt very equal to them at that moment. And I felt like somehow race relations were gone during that time of mourning we had. And it was like everybody owned America at that time.
Yeah.
Latino, black, owned America like the way it was meant to be. And they didn't like that either, did they?
No, and
they had to put a stop to that.
Yeah, real quick. When Hillary says white people this and black African Americans that, she's just saying, keep in your camps. You're much easier to control when you hyphenate an American and put him and leave him in the groups. But the good news is, hey, Beyonce saying that we need to pray for peace, and I think she's going to have a special on where everybody will be like her. They'll grab their crotch and then they'll pray. You think that'll work?
Well, that's not the way I was taught to pray. So I know my way works. I'm pretty sure hers doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but she sure enjoys praying. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so
I do. Wink, wink. But I'm telling you, man. I was taught how to know God. So from an early age, man.
Only on the edge here.
He's cool, man. He is a cool being. He's the coolest. He's the most fun to be around. He's the most entertaining. He's the most intellectual. He's the most stimulating. People make him look like some boring thing. He is not boring. Being in relationship with the Spirit of God is not boring. Trust me.
You know,
anyway,
I'm going to go with you there. I'm one of the many hats, pun intended there. I'm a beekeeper, and one of my sweet little bees was digging into one of my hosta flowers. They have conical flowers. And here's this little bee. She was fighting her way in to get that pollen. And I was looking at it amazed and said, that little bee is going to get in there. You know, what tenacity. And, you know, and that's just a simple thing. But, you know, every time I see something like that, I think of this eternal being that had such majesty and beauty in the eye and the creation, and how some idiot would say that come out of a primordial soup is they need to be looked at for insanity, you know. But I agree with you. I don't see anything boring about the Spirit of God. It's an awesome thing to know that there's that being out there and that life has a purpose and a meaning.
Yeah, and one of the things that made me, you know, having that worldview growing up, and this is my culture, okay? I'm going to talk about my culture for a minute, okay? In my culture, to be evil was to be pitied and to be hated, and we didn't want evil people around us, man. I mean, we were all good people. We wanted to treat each other well. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I was raised in an America where we liked each other. Okay? We all liked each other. Catholics, Protestants. Man, we all went to the Methodist church for the pancake supper, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We learned how to get along. Did you know Christian faiths used to fight each other, mm-hmm. you know, with guns and stuff? Yeah. And now I'm going to their pancake dinner? Come on, man.
Have you ever been to a Baptist bean supper?
Oh, yes. And I've also been to an Assembly of God and where I really learned to eat chitlins one time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You know, I don't know what it is.
That was in Biloxi. It was in Biloxi, yeah.
Biloxi, I have a creed, man. If I can't spell it, I don't eat it. So chitlins, I'm not really sure. Steve Olson, let's get to a question just came in from Canada from Mart. Says, Steve, when do you think this secondary solar system will pass by?
Well, see, that's impossible for amateur researchers like myself and the people that are working on this to answer. The variables and dynamics, I mean, we could sit there and predict orbits all day, but if I don't have the actual mass of the objects, and if I don't have the actual movement patterns, are they elliptical around their solar system, it's all these different variables, all I can tell you is the Hopis used to say, one of the things the Hopis used to say was that the objects would, the Hopi Indians in their prophecies, Daniel, which actually talk about the blue Kachina and the red Kachina, which is, we think is a manifestation of this system in a past era. And the Hopis say that the objects dance around behind the sun for a period of time before they come up on us. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing objects in and around the sun or pretty close to the sun almost seemingly dance around it, or we're seeing objects that are almost geosynchronous in their slowness of movement and the way that they follow the Earth. So we've got a lot of different stuff going on right now, Daniel, but it matches with that early stage Hopi legend, if you will, that said we'd see stuff dancing around behind the sun, and now we're seeing it.
But now, weren't the prophecies of the Hopi Indians roundly quoted in the pre-2012 predictions?
They were, but they were taken out of context. And also the rattlesnake tribe was taken out of context. And in fact, I had to go, they went in on one page back in 2012, and a lot of these pages are still out there, Daniel. Mm-hmm. You know, the fear porn pages, and I'm not a fear porn channel, by the way. Ooh, most of the people that come to my channel get comforted to say, yeah, you're not a weirdo, you're not alone, you're a Christian who's seen something in the sky, I get it, or you're a Buddhist that's seen something in the sky, I get it. Come here, you're not going to be vilified, you're not going to be made to look stupid, and ask questions, ask away. And we have huge comments. I let the trolls and the shills go until I discover them. I take a lot of risk, but we are an open community, and anybody is welcome to hang out with us, man.
All right, I like your attitude on that. I did it the last time, and it really is impressive. That's the way things ought to be. But let's tell you what, we've got a question just pop in out of our live chat. It says, "What is your best evidence to the things you're talking about?"
The best evidence, actually, I believe the best evidence that I have right now was the video before the last one. I just did an interview with Marshall Masters, which is the last one. But the one right prior to that, we've been observing this object in the Alaskan sky cams that's been illuminated. Something up there is being illuminated that it's so clear, and we have it on time lapse. And then a couple of the other photos and documents that we had in that video. Really, the last 4 or 5 videos that we've made have just been thing after thing after thing. It's just, it used to be, Daniel, when even just a few months ago, like in December, say, of 2015, I had the channel started, and I would get a couple hundred emails a week, and maybe 1 out of every 100 would be something interesting to look at and talk about. I did most of the research early on by myself. Now, 1 out of every 2 or 3 emails that I get from all over the world show something compelling.
What about
it's increased?
What about those people that have they show pictures of what appears to be a second sun? Is that part and parcel of the second solar system, or is that on a whole different category?
No, so we haven't been able to nail down if it's a dual star system or maybe even a 3-star system. But the way that it's getting leaked out is it's going to the dark star, the one that's commonly referred to as Nibiru, but it's actually Nemesis. Nibiru is a blue planet, and so anyway, to continue, that's going to get within 0.3 AU of the Earth. That's what they're saying anyway, right? Which is still outside the asteroid belt. And what that means, though, is we will be in proximity to see interaction between Sol and Nemesis, and we just hope that we don't get caught between some of that. And the second thing is that it's got its own planets, so we're going to see them kind of go in and out. We might have a day or two of darkness when one of these things eclipses our sun for a period of time. These are all the things that I've gathered through all this research, boiled down to a nutshell. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm told. I hope it's not as even. I hope it's not as bad as they say.
Okay. All right. We have this came through our fast blast. It says, Steve, God says in Revelation 12, it will occur when Jupiter takes residence in the Virgo womb area this November and exits September 23rd, 2017. Does that sound right?
It does.
So that's a date. Those are dates right there.
I can't own that date, and the first guy that told me this story, and in fact he's got a book about it, was David Mead. And if you go back in my videos, you'll find an interview with David. And I'm pretty hesitant to talk about dates because here's what happened in 2012. What they did in 2012 was the psyops, they hyped this thing up so hard and pushed out all this false evidence, and people got so frothing at the mouth, and then when nothing happened in 2012, the whole thing was totally discredited. They won a huge victory. And the really core guys like Marshall Masters and Bob Fletcher, their messages went dark and for a period. And now what's happening is we're coming back into the forefront again because now people are starting to see it themselves, Daniel. It's not, I don't have to explain it anymore. People are pointing their own camera. They're seeing their own stuff. They're looking at the webcams themselves. They're looking at the H1 satellites themselves. So, people are doing what they, we taught them how to go look for it, and now a lot of people are looking for it. And we're getting a lot of evidence.
Has NASA ever mistakenly sent out any photographs that show this, purport to show this?
Yeah, there was a couple of, or said to be, I believe they are actually, where they had it from the actual Iris satellite imagery of it, and it was this red ball with 5 illuminated objects around it, kind of thing, float. And it was it was against the black backdrop of black space. There wasn't a lot to see, but the compelling testimony was that guy. I remember it was one of the final nails in the coffin for me on the subject, and he was he was working with the Hubble spacecraft in some capacity. And they were able to see the live feed when they were pointing it at this system as it was approaching in the 90s. And he describes this in great detail. And in fact, I need to probably pop it up on my site one of these days just so people can hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think, a coast-to-coast interview, anything, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Point being is that it was seen a long time ago, and people have been talking about it for a long time. There was the article that was released in the Washington Post in 1982. There was all of this leakage. It's not like you can cover it up forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can discredit people for a time. You can make people look like idiots for a time, or even crazy for a time. But after a while, that's why they're not killing me, I guess, or some of the people that have gotten. Because it's gotten to the point now, why kill anybody, man? We're going to see it in another couple months anyway, so.
Wow. And I don't know if I asked you this question last time you were on the program. By the way, for those of you just tuning in, we have on our Newsmaker line Steve Olson, and we have a previous interview. If you scroll down the Edge's homepage, or you can also find it on our YouTube channel as well. Steve, have you decided that are you one that believes in prepping for such an event, or is there's no way to escape? Is you going to stay where you're at and just let things roll?
Nope. It's kind of a thing where we're taking the approach of, first of all, we believe that you need to find communities to belong to. Not necessarily today, you know what I mean? I'm not big on the communes prior to the event, that kind of thing. I do think that there has to be plans and strategies just because it's a smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. So what we've done at WSO is we've created, well, we started out as just a simple idea of, hey, let's create a couple of groups where people can talk. Turned into, Daniel, over 200 worldwide WSO facilitated groups where people can come and locally get to know other people and start to build communities, because we believe that communities of 100 or more are going to be necessary to get through this, and you are going to have to look at and study out where to relocate to if you're going to survive. If this thing happens, I mean, and you're. In preparing, there are ways to prepare. It will still be a rough tribulation, though. If the Lord doesn't pull us out, it's going to be rough.
Now, what is that picture on your desktop there?
This is one of the better images that I got. This is a gal that used a 1,000 millimeter camera, telescopic lens, perfectly still on a tripod. The sun is down at the lower left, that bright yellow, and the object itself has a cloud around it. And the reason it has a cloud around it, per the testimony of the guy we were just talking about, it's covered in this iron oxide dust. The question is, why is it blue? It's because the colors aren't going to be consistent depending on the temperature and other variables that we have in its proximity to the sun and all different kinds of things. But we did see a huge object next to the sun in this picture with a cloud around it.
So that, okay, are those gases from the sun there that the right there?
No, these are gas. This is the iron oxide dust we postulate. Now, again, I can't get samples. I don't have access to the telescopes or anything like that to look at these things. So this is done with an amateur with a 1,000 millimeter lens. This is like a very highly magnified image of this object, and it was one of the best pictures I've ever seen.
So you consider that a legitimate picture?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to be having it analyzed soon, also just to double validate it. But I've looked at it from a gamma ray perspective, and the other thing that this thing seems to be doing is it's emitting ultraviolet light, which is very interesting. So we've been seeing, like, did you hear on 4th of July that some outdoor gyms and play yards, the toys were getting so hot that it was burning kids' hands?
No, I didn't hear that, but I heard it got hot in Arizona.
Right. Well, what was happening was, we postulate that this second object was emitting its UV light, and when it's behind the sun, as it's moving around back there, it actually gets blocked. We actually have been taking UV readings, so when it's behind the sun, when we can't see it and it's blocked, the UV rates actually go down below what's normal. When it's out, it's like off the charts.
Well, I'll tell you what,
we have that. We have this evidence, Daniel. We have it. We have this evidence.
So you have do you have a group, an inner core group that is collating this information and then you disseminate it on your website, or how does that go? What are you doing with this information you're gathering?
So mostly what I do with this information right now is we're storing it and we discuss it with other researchers. We have a huge network that built. That's another thing that's different about this time around. And we're not very gullible, this group. We're pretty smart. There's a lot of people that have been around for a while. We're easy to. We do get fooled, though. I have been fooled a couple times, Daniel. I don't want to lie about it.
Okay.
I have been fooled. I've taken a picture or two that I looked at later to only find out it was fake. But I'll come right on the channel and apologize to it. I'll say, look, this is a fake. I got duped on this one, man.
Yeah.
And everybody laughs and we move on. You know.
Yeah, I remember when the Brexit vote was happening in the UK, and it came across the wire that the Remain had won, and so I put that out there, and then it was like 2 hours later Brexit that had won. I was thinking, okay, well, they just wish cast that information. They wish casted that Remain won, trying to tilt the election, and I put that out there before it was confirmed. I was thinking, so I know exactly what you're saying about getting bit about that kind of information there. But I tell you what, talk about postulations. I postulate that talking about this extreme heat that particularly was in Arizona, the day that Bill Clinton said he was golfing, he happened to be in Arizona golfing. Okay, it was 115 degrees, and Bill Clinton, he looks like the crypt keeper right now, man. There's no way he was out in 115 degree heat golfing. He was waiting to collude with Loretta Stench in order to get Hillary set free there. All right, so now what are we looking at here on your desktop? Another shot?
All right. Yep. So I'm just kind of paging through a couple of the good ones lately. This one is one of the things that we've been learning as we've been watching this, Daniel, is the first thing that we have to get used to is that these are massive, massive objects, many times larger than anything we've ever encountered before, this close to our solar system. So there's still, like this object here, the way this is coming together for us is still a distance away, but it's just so large that it fills up a good part of the sky when it's visible, And what we're seeing in the rainbow there is basically the atmosphere of this object.
All right, I have that on our live stream now as you're talking. But we had a guest on the program, Steve, that claimed that the clouds have been captured in photographic evidence behind the moon. Have you heard of that? Now that has to be a fraud, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. So and this is the other thing too, is this flat Earth theory where they go back and they distort sayings in Enoch and other parts of the Bible to make the case that you can't be a Christian if you believe that we're on a globe circling a star. You know what I mean? That there's no way that you can be a holy person or a good person. I'm like, really? I said, I was in PSYOP operations and supported that kind of stuff, and we used to try to find a dissenting voice inside the movement. And so that's exactly what that is. So the flat earthers will say all day long, yeah, what you're seeing is real, what you're seeing is real. But no, the earth is a firmament, just like Enoch. And so, again, anything they can do to distort and to change the facts, man, that's what they do.
And also, though, isn't there, when you talk about getting false intel, wouldn't we expect there are disinfo out there anyway? Agents of disinfo? I would expect that,
especially with if it's this big and the cover up is as big as we've as big as we've guessed it is, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge cover up. It's a multi-global cover up. It's a cover up of mass proportions. There's some that actually believe within the world community right now that Putin and Obama are right now in a pissing match over who's going to announce it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got Putin over there riding horses barefoot and wrestling bears, and you got Obama with a security helmet riding a bicycle wearing mom's jeans. So I'm not sure who the bigger. Well, I guess I am pretty sure. Hey, listen, Steve, we're at the top of the hour. Here we take a 5-minute break. You remain live on the line. We just turned you down. Anything you'd like to say about your website or your group? You go right ahead.
All right. Well, the group is easy. You just email James at WSOworldwide.com if you'd like to participate in a local group, get to know some people in your area, or just hang out with us online. We do a weekly conference call, that kind of thing, or come to my YouTube channel. Really easy to find. Just put Steve Olson in the Google search bar, and I come right up on top.
Okay. All right, you stay right there. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes. All right, everybody, you're listening to or watching the Edge television broadcast. On our Newsmaker line tonight is Steve Olson. If you missed any of this exciting broadcast, it'll begin to replay in our main player directly after the show. We'll extract the high-definition video and upload it to our YouTube channel. We'll put it in our podcast and in our TuneIn radio playlist. Future guests to be announced here shortly, and on our website. Keep looking at, return to our website and look for the updates. We're going to take a 5.
Let's get back to discovering the truth together on The Edge.
And welcome back to the Edge television broadcast. My name is Daniel Lott. If you have a question for tonight's guest, Steve Olson, go to the edgeam.com website, click on the Fast Blast link, or join them in the live chat where Jade, our moderator, will take out those questions and send them to me. All right, let's go back to our Newsmaker line and bring back Steve Olson. Steve, are you there?
I am.
All right, welcome back, Steve. I mean, we're talking about the end of life as we know it, something coming into our stratosphere. But from what I gather, talking to you, you expect there will be life because somebody's going to step in and take over, and that would be a nefarious world government entity. So is it some part of the earth will be destroyed or affected, and all of it will be?
No, I think the entire Earth will be affected. That there will be effects to everybody on the Earth. But just a simple scientific fact that we're rotating on an axis, right, in space. Some parts of the Earth will probably get hit worse than others and exposed to things differently than others. So I feel that there will be places on Earth that, just like a tornado, that weren't touched, and others that are just going to be smoking pits. You know what I mean?
Well, now, okay, go ahead.
So it's going to be like that. Yeah.
Okay, you've identified yourself as a man, as a spiritual person. Do you believe that certain people will maybe actually chosen to escape the wrath of this thing, or will everybody?
Are you talking about like the Christian idea of a rapture?
No, actually, I'm talking about irrespective of that. We could talk about that, but I'd say those that remain, those that are here. Let's just say, your house. Let's say you say you've done some good. The spiritual realms recognize that, and so this secondary planetary system wreaks havoc on your neighbor's house and skips over yours. Will it be in that proximity type thing? Do you think that certain people will have a pass?
Will be more like this. It'll be more like this city is gone, and then this city's still here.
So
that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So irrespective, then there won't be a remnant, a supernatural protection on the most holiest of person, or the most most piety, or most connected to the spiritual realm. They get no pass. If they're in that city, they're done.
Yeah, I don't think the Lord's a respecter of persons. He talked about the tower, when he was sitting with the disciples and they asked him about the tower that fell on the guys in the neighborhood over. News traveled around the grapevine, Jesus sitting there. And he's like, man, some things just happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say anything profound about it. He just said it happens.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Katrina hit New Orleans area, a laughing hyena type of preacher named Jesse Duplantis, he said that God had spared his broadcast scenario, or his broadcast station, but one of his generators went out, and so he was wanting people to pay $50,000 to fix his generator. I'm thinking, hey, well, God could only protect one part of your studio, but he couldn't protect your generator. I mean, what kind of crap is that? And then now we've actually had a guy on the show that claimed that when the nukes fall, we talk about, you could say that whole category that there's going to be a nuclear war. He believed that he would be able to walk right through the nuclear blast unscathed because he has a direct connection with the spiritual realm. So you're saying that they better be having a thick lead suit, because that type of talk isn't going to get you anywhere.
It won't. And I, at least in my view, right, I think that God, the way I have viewed the Father, Abba, my friend, my best friend, and everything like that, is he's going to take care of you if you live or die. And so the question isn't, am I going to be in a city that gets spared, or am I not going to be in a city that gets spared? The question is, are you ready to face either scenario?
Are you ready?
And I think that's a good question to ask any human anyway, because everybody is going to see that day when you leave this earth, one way or another. So the question of having yourself ready for eternity at all times is just to me a great idea, right?
Yeah.
And then the second great idea is if you live through this and you have a relationship with the Father, and the way I see it, yeah, you're going to get supernatural help. But so are a lot of other folks going to get some supernatural help too. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, what about in scriptural terms when it says toward the end there will be a great sickle thrust thrust through the earth, and the shaft shall be burnt up, and the wheat shall be gathered together, or some sort of safety. There seems to be an identifier there, a differentiator between the chaff and the wheat, and I would imagine that the chaff are probably the haters out there, and there's a bunch of them out there. And then the other people, like you and me, we got love in our heart, and God, the Spirit of God knows that, so we're going to get it past. But you're not saying it's going to be like that, or is that something completely different?
Okay, so my theory, I'm more lean towards universalism. I believe that the act that Jesus did was a comprehensive work. I don't believe all the people on the earth are human. So when he talks about the wheat and the tares, and this goes a little L.A. Marzulli, if you've ever studied any of his materials. I believe that there are a race of people that were not supposed to be here. And I think that when we talk about wheat and tares, sometimes we're not maybe so much talking about human versus human, but we're talking about human versus this other hybridized, whatever it was between the Nephilim and the children of men, the women of men. And I read Genesis chapter 6. I'm not a dummy. There was something that happened, and we have to acknowledge that. And you have to also acknowledge that the discussion that God had with Satan, Lucifer, and Adam and Eve in the garden, when he was kind of dressing down Satan, he was saying it's a battle between your seed and my seed. Mm-hmm. Well, genetically seed, like the seed of your loins, like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, what did that mean? Did that mean that there's going to be a battle between two actual races of beings of some sort, spirit of spirit? So you got to get a little deeper into the scriptures to follow what I'm saying and know that what I'm saying is completely scriptural. But I really do. My own belief is God loves every human being, and you have to willingly look at him and say, I don't want you. And even if you do that, you have to actually have him move powerfully in your life, knowing it's him, and call him like the devil. That's what he said in the book of Luke, I think.
Would that be codified by that scripture that says, grieve not the Holy Ghost? Because that seems to be the one thing that can eternally separate you. Is that sort of the grieving thing that can be?
It is, right. And even then, the Holy Spirit loves you. Just like, our loved ones grieve us sometimes, Daniel. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But we still take them back, and we still love them. That's the way the Holy Spirit that I know is. He's not the one that gets grieved and then says, get the hell out of here. He's I'm grieved. I'm hurt. You disappointed me big time, son. But now it's time to come back here and get back to work with me. Well, that's what my Holy Spirit does.
Well, let's just dive back in this controversial statement of yours that you believe that all people here are not human. I've always kind of felt like I've been watched by some nefarious force, and kind of keeping their eye on me. But what trying to make sure I don't get out of hand, and I would do nothing better than to get out of hand and piss them off. So I want to know who these freaks are that are not human is walking among us, and is there any way to identify them, Steve?
I don't know of any way. So, like, I know a lot of people think that David Icke is kind of off the charts, off the wall. But if you really listen to Dave Icke's material, he makes a compelling case that these beings have infiltrated all parts of our global governments and have pushed an agenda of Luciferianism. Seriously,
well, I'm not going for that,
man. It's like their doctrine is like right out of the book of Crowley. It's so the Anunnaki right now. There's a lot of researchers. There's actually a Nibiru community, Daniel. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay.
On one side of the Nibiru community, they're mostly Christians like me that have open minds and say, well, maybe what God was talking about in the garden was really a race thing. And, we'll explore the scriptures that way, but we all just love God. And then we've got this other group that kind of envisions the universe as being multiple species of beings that come and go, and there's all this going on, and they've had, you know what I mean? And they believe that this race called the Anunnaki is going to return to the earth, and is going to bring wisdom and all kinds of. They're going to tell us that they were actually the ones who made us, and they are going to say that they are the gods, and they're going to try to convince us that we are ascendant gods ourselves, just like the book of Lucifer, just like the book of Satan. And so I tried to point out to these Anunnaki believers in the Nibiru community, I point out to them that the doctrine is Luciferian. I show it to them. I say, what's going to unfold in that scenario if we actually see aliens up on the stage? We've got a pretty good idea that they're going to push a Luciferian doctrine on the earth. And if that happens, well, I warned you.
Wow. Well, there have been accusations of Luciferian entities running the government or the world for a long time.
Come on, man. What's the Bilderberg group all about? They frickin' do a Moloch sacrifice. And it's Henry Kissinger and all these world leaders.
It looked like a bunch of dried up old crackers getting together, man, and running around in togas, man, probably doing each other. I mean, I don't know what they're doing over there, Steve.
Well, and again, we've got a lot. Again, this Bilderberg group, the Trilateral Committee. I mean, all of these cabals and secret societies. I mean, it's been going on for a long, long, long time. Okay, this stuff is not just happening. We might be becoming aware of it in our little 80-year cycle that we got, but these guys operate over centuries. They extremely patient. They're waiting until the human race is perfectly vulnerable.
Yeah, what is it with the owl though? You talk about Moloch. What is it with the owl? You got a little bitty owl on the dollar bill. He's sitting on the one there. I mean, what is the owl?
I don't know. I wonder if one of the guys, one of the people on the chat might know.
Okay. Hey, all right. Somebody in the live chat, you heard it. He just posed a question to you. All right. And by the way, I see a bunch of questions coming in too. And here's one right for you. This is from Philip in Georgia. Steve says, is there anything to Pluto coming into Capricorn?
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the Eris thing?
I don't know, Philip. Philip would have to answer that question.
Well, Philip, I think you're talking about Eris. And so NASA kind of made a mistake when they said that our Horizon probe had gone by Ceres and it went by Pluto, and now it's going to go out into the Kuiper Belt. Supposedly, that was actually before it got to Pluto. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, there have been. Hey, what about you think John Hagee should give money back for the books he sold talking about the blood moon?
It's like
is he just a fat fraud or what?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I try not to judge people and everything like that because so I don't get judged. But here's the thing: is I also am given the right to judge things in the Bible in a sense of fruits, right? And the fruit that that ministry tends to produce, in my opinion, is fear and loathing.
Fear porn. I like that term.
Yourself, fear and loathing of God. Yeah, it's just not. It's not the kind of God that I worship. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same thing with Tim LaHaye. He buy his book and you'll be able to ride on out of here during the Great Rapture. We brushed over that earlier, and I don't know what your views are. And somebody asked me, actually many times over the career I've been doing this. I've been doing a broadcast since 2004, so I've had so many variety of guests on there. I don't do a background check on any of the guests. I don't do serious intel. I really would rather not. I want I know something fresh. I want to know something honest. I don't want to be, just have somebody agreeing with me and just pick out guests that I know agree with me, because I feel like it'd be the most boringest show ever. So I will have guests on there, and then after I have them on, people say, Daniel, you're going to go to hell for that and this and the other. But so I didn't check to see, particularly on this issue of rapture. So on that thing, where do you stand?
I'm a mid or after tribulationist, so I think it's going to come either in the middle or end of the tribulation.
And so,
because at some point we have to be ready, because the prophecies say that we come with the Lord to finish him off, right? And so we all have to be together with him to do that. So I believe that it would have to be in the middle or end.
Okay. So do you believe it would be at the last trump?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in eschatology to that level,
Will
but I
will
do. Go ahead.
will there be any Trump
Oh,
sounded?
I believe so. I believe there's seven Trumps according to the Book of Revelation. I do know that.
Uh-huh. And who do we have running for president? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I think it's going to be a big but like that kind of thing, you know.
People are making that connection, man. I think there's, I don't know, was it a firefighter's prophecy? I'm trying to find the guy, get him on the show, but I think there's somebody, like, it's called a firefighter's prophecy who was shown that Trump is a Trump. And so, I want to get that guy on the show.
Oh gosh, I think get Danny. I think if you could get Donald Trump on the show, that'd be great. I
no,
think
no,
it'd be fun.
well,
But you know what? Alex Jones says that Trump actually has a lot of inside knowledge on this stuff, and he knows the cabal is there. He is not a member of it. Those kind of things. Who knows, right? I don't know.
yeah.
I do want to tell you about this picture I got right here, though.
Oh, okay. Here, let me get you on screen here. Hang on. I'll just move that
Yeah,
on
there's
over.
a couple more I want to show you, Dan. Only
Okay.
because a lot of people, I just want to show you things that are so weird.
Okay.
And the only way I can explain it is the Nibiru system.
Okay. I got your desktop on screen now.
Isn't that a pretty sunset?
It is, and is that a sun, or is that Nibiru, or is that the secondary solar system smashing into us?
Daniel, this is facing east as the sun is setting in it behind the person in the west.
It is?
Yeah,
Okay.
I get pictures like this every day now. This is one of the big things we're seeing. And in fact, if you're at higher elevations, watch at sunset, watch your eastern skies, and tell me if you don't have more light in the eastern sky than what you normally see. You can see this stuff yourself, man. I don't have to show you pictures anymore.
So you're
Just
saying
look.
this is a planetary anomaly, but what is the extreme nature of it? What are you saying here with this?
What I think this is a planet that the sun is at basically illuminating one face of that planet as that planet is setting on our horizon, on the eastern horizon, moving in the opposite direction of us.
Guest 384 out of the live chat says, Steve, how can listeners see these objects for themselves?
Just gave you an example. Watch the sunset when you have your sunset in your area. Is watch the eastern sky and tell me if you don't see light on the eastern sky.
Okay.
The other thing you look at is watch the northern star every night. Watch the position of the Big Dipper and tell me that thing isn't wobbling around. The other thing you can notice is the sun is setting right now way too far north, Daniel, for this time of year. I think just 2 days ago we got a 346-degree sunset, which would put that at just 14 degrees, just 14 degrees south of due north, and that's not right, man. And so we see this, and it's not consistent. It's like we're wobbling. It's like we're moving. It's not like we're staying in one place anymore.
Well, isn't there scriptural references that say that the heavens will be shaken and the earth will wobble, so to speak, like a drunken man? I mean, what are those prophecies of what's going to happen?
Yeah, that is a prophecy, and that is actually, I believe, what is happening right now.
Now that gets me into in my file folder of guest topics, and let's see, I'm just lost my train of thought. My file folder of end time prophecy of talking about that the earth will, or the planets will be shaken, the earth will be shaken, and planets will lose their place and stuff. Is that what we're talking about?
It is, yeah, exactly. So if you think about two solar systems intersecting with each other, everybody is absolutely correct. There's going to be a lot of interaction. In fact, if you look at the trend of asteroids, fireballs, earthquakes, the trend and the movement of the magnetic North Pole, all of those things align to show a picture of a thing that's been approaching for years.
There are those that are predicting that the Earth is going to tilt on its axis again. They said it's done it many times in the past. Is this secondary solar system going to cause the Earth to shift on its axis?
That's what they say. But on the other hand, I think that it will snap back to its original. Because here's why I say that, Daniel. If you look at the pyramid in Giza, the Great Pyramid, and they have their little holes lined up to very specific constellations and stars and so forth. And I believe they built the Great Pyramid, and I wished I could get in there to do this observation. I purport that, or my hypothesis is, if you go to the Great Pyramid in Giza right now, all of those star lines are off. And the reason that they made the pyramid was a big warning about this. So when you don't see Pisces in the right spot, and you don't see the North Star in the right spot, they're saying, get underground.
Wow. All right.
And so I believe that, yes, I believe the Earth will tilt, will swing, and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, we snap back to position as per the Great Pyramid at Giza has shown us. Otherwise, it wouldn't be aligned on its stars anymore, would it?
Hey, I wonder if the song Snapback by Old Dominion is a prophetic song. By the way, those of you who are looking or watching the show right now, we have in our video screen there, that is Steve Olson's desktop. He's been showing various pictures here and again. Steve, what are we looking at right there? Is that another sunset picture?
This is more of a midday picture, mid-late afternoon. We have a lot of pictures that we're seeing in the middle of the sky where we're seeing a very strange cloud structure or extra atmospheric thing, and we're seeing this red ball now a lot. And and this is not a touched photo, or slightly brought down in saturation a little bit to make it a little easier to see. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. But what is that red ball thing there? What's going on there?
I believe that a planet was going past us.
You're kidding.
Between us and the sun.
Wow. And I would dare say that planet should not have been there, Steve.
That's what I was taught in school.
Yeah.
Riverdale High School, Muscoda, Wisconsin. Yep.
That's what you were taught. Okay. So
that was what I was taught.
Even now, NASA has been reclassifying planets. The science is not set about the astrological properties of the universe. They're fluid. And so I think it is open for discussion and debate and challenging the existing status quo. And I appreciate you saying that's what you've been told, because what you're really saying is that was probably some BS that was pre-programmed for the masses. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, but they forgot to say how many people he killed looking for gold. So we've got to reevaluate what our history is. The government has always tried to hide the history of the planet when it doesn't line up to the conventional wisdom, we came out of a cave, knocked some people in the head, and made a village, and blah, blah, blah. They leave out Atlantis and pre-Diluvian civilizations. Is there any, you mentioned the Hopi Indians, is there any other ancient culture that predicts these planetary anomalies?
Yeah, the oldest culture that we have writings from, the Sumerians predicted it, Daniel. Now, do I ascribe to Zechariah Sitchin's belief that the Anunnaki were our fathers, and that's what the Sumerians said? Well, the Sumerians might have said it, but they ain't no father of mine.
Wow. Are you sure?
Yeah, well, that's what the Sumerians said. No, and even if they are, I'm going to reject them.
Okay. Yeah. And
if they actually made us as slaves to mine gold and they just left us here by ourselves, what kind of parents would they be?
When you read, if you studied any of the ancient civilizations or writings, there are some stories that it seem to predate biblical texts that have similar stories, such as somebody being born of a virgin, or a great flood, and even the salvation of the planet through some sort of vessel. And they point to these as the precursor to the Bible, and that the Bible had lifted those stories and put them in there and recategorized them. Do you subscribe to that?
No, actually, what I think is those were early spiritual people that had a foretaste of the real story that occurred. They were prophesying. Mm-hmm. It's just different culture. So, and then they missed it, and everything in Egypt seemed to turn into a god, or at least that's the way we interpreted it. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about Horus and many other likenesses of Jesus that had the 12 disciples and all that kind of stuff. I believe that those were also prophecies of my Lord when he came.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have this question from the live chat from me too. It says, could all these pictures of two suns be reflections of the sun on the inside of the dome that covers the earth?
Well, that would be a flat earth theory, and I reject it utterly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about hollow earth?
It's hard to say on that one, Daniel, because I'm still doing some research on this right now.
Okay.
I'm really interested lately in what were the Nazis doing down there.
Hmm.
And I had Dr. Richard Allen speaking of guests that open, I have the same thing. I'll have any guest on just to get a point of view. And we had Dr. Alan Miller, who I actually like a lot. He's a great man.
Hmm.
But he actually worked in high level military operations in the 60s and 70s. And so he was relaying stories that we actually nuked the Nazi base in 1961 and all these kind of wild stories. So I'm interested in learning more about that. It was one of the stories they said was that the Nazis were guarding the entrance to this hollow earth, and who knows, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's compelling right now. It's compelling to me right now.
Well, and I think that's when we all need to study things that interest us and that excite us, and I'm glad you're going down that road because everything that we've been told needs to be challenged, and even the most oddball theories should be investigated. Rather, because saying to somebody who's just to say believes that Nazis live in the ground, a refrain would be in a conversation, "You're crazy. That's nuts." Well, "You're crazy and that's nuts" is not an argument. It's not a fact. It's not it's not anything. The answer could only be, well, let me research it, or I don't have those facts yet, or, I haven't seen it. Because every theory is really like that. When somebody dismisses a theory as something stupid or insane or whatever, that's not an answer. That's not a challengeable answer to that.
No, and let me tell you something right now. If I learn some fact that shows me that this is a hoax, or this is some kind of a deception, or portions of this has been a deception, I promise my audience that I will come out with it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to hide anything. I'm just getting more evidence that says it's real than evidence that says it's not real,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. I was watching Netflix UFO files, and they, I guess you could say, postulated, but they had video evidence. It looked like some sort of giant UFO was draining plasma from the sun or went into the sun. And that sounds crazy, but there was actually sort of video evidence of it. Now, because I am not, I don't study coronal ejections. I'm not a sun expert, and I wasn't there when they whoever it was took the
Oh,
video.
no. That one is different, man. That one is different. An orb approached the sun, connected to the sun, and disconnected from the sun. That is well documented. And we were using NASA instruments to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
now wouldn't that say
that happened?
But scientists would say that's impossible and dismiss it out of hand. But you're saying that did happen.
Yeah, because the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, you could actually see the object. You could actually see it sucking a stream or a filament from the sun and then separating away from the sun. Even suspicious observers, who I think is one of the most kind of conservative on this issue, they're not willing to say what I say. I don't know if he's got interest to protect or whatever, but he even saw and analyzed that.
Yeah, I saw the video. The video is compelling, and so is the video that came out of Ohio of a triangular, dagger-shaped looking UFO. Did you see that video? It was hanging.
I did. Yeah. And I also had a subscriber that photographed what we refer to as a TR3. Straight up photographed it. The only thing I couldn't see was the U.S. Air Force symbol on it.
And those things we just talked about, those are factual things. There's evidence for it, and that just tells you that the universe and everything that we know is much bigger than the things that we are told. And I think it's frankly exciting to look into them. And I think the reason, say, the religious or spiritual groups haven't, they've been told for so long that even asking question is of the devil. If you even ask a question, is fluoride good for you? When the government says it, government says it is, but the data says it's not, but if you question the government, they've always been sort of taught never question anything. And so here we are, we have, you said you're conservative on social issues. So, when you get to sucking the brains out of a baby, I guess it didn't really rile enough people of faith to say, wait a minute, that's wrong. We should never enact that into law. And they never went to the streets to protest it. And so now it is law. You can suck the brains out of a baby and it's legal.
Yeah. It's horror. It's a horror show, baby. this is horror show on the most epic level.
Well, that's what
How
I'm
can
saying
we
is that's
kill
what
the
you
most-
get.
how can
That's
kill
what
the-
you get.
You kill the most innocent. We're killing the most innocent beings on the earth.
Well,
They haven't even lived yet.
and
know?
and when we were talking about the irony and the brazenness in the first hour, there we have video proof, eyewitness proof that they were selling body parts on the internet against federal law, and they were all found innocent, and the guy who took the video was found guilty. You know, it's like Bill Clinton going to Loretta Stinch's plane, or Hillary Clinton deleting all of her emails and giving classified data to attorneys. It's so brazen that it's just beyond belief that there's nothing can be done about this kind of crap.
Hey, how many minutes of tape was it that Nixon got busted for? Wasn't that about 4 seconds or 4 minutes of tape or something?
It was 18 minutes.
18 minutes, that's
Yeah.
right. 18 minutes of tape. Busted Nixon.
Mm-hmm. He
All
had
of
the
this evidence
decency.
doesn't bust her.
He had the decency to resign. And interestingly enough, the prime minister was the prime minister of England. He resigned right after the Brexit vote. But when the United States completely changed over, all the governors and the senators and the congressmen to the R, you think he would have resigned because it's not what the people want.
Well, again, I don't believe that the Republican or Democratic label means diddly anymore. I think that they are just two sides of the same coin. I don't trust either one of them.
I don't either. No way.
And I think that they're trying to create the Republican Democrat ideology thing. You know what? I'm a gun-loving social democrat, man, just like my mama. I was raised by a social democrat. We were poor, Daniel. We didn't have a choice to should we do this investment or that investment, man. It was a hard scrabble existence. So we had a lot of mercy for other people, and we gave a lot. And my dad to this day runs a food pantry. So I'm a Christian in that sense that it's up to us to help each other. Man, if you're depending on the government for anything, for your sustenance or for your well-being or anything like that, I'm really sorry for you, man, because they're not God. They're not the Rock, man. They're not gonna be around forever. They just won't be.
All right. We have this question from Jade, our moderator, actually, on the live chat. Have you heard of the theory that Nibiru physics is plasma-based and not gravity-based?
Yes, and in fact, I think that is an extension of Carlos Ferrata, the Brazilian, I think he was from South America, astronomer that was very deep into that theory and developed it through his own observations.
This question is from John in Pennsylvania. Says, do you believe there will be more nuclear reactors melt down like Fukushima?
I don't know how we can avoid it. I'm really hoping that there's a mercy in somebody if this all goes down the way that we think it's going down, Daniel. And again, I won't come out and say it's definitely going to freaking happen, because I'm praying and hoping that it won't. Seriously, I am. But the evidence is stacked against me right now. And so where I'm going with this is that you got to prepare, man. I'm telling people, have 3 months worth of food and water. Is that too much to ask people? Go to the store and get beans and rice and water, and then you'll make me happy, and I'll go away. Okay?
Well, I think everybody in the live chat and people watch the show, do you want to make Steve happy? Okay, it's very simple. He just requests that you prepare for, the Bible does say, behold the ant. What does it say? Behold the ant, you sluggard. He prepares all summer long. Why don't you?
Yeah, and again, it's just common sense, because let's just get away from Nibiru for a second, okay? Let's look and see what's happening in Venezuela right now. Just a few short years ago, when oil prices were high and their economy was cooking, they had enough money to have a socialist government, i.e., the government paid for everything, right? Food, groceries, everything. It was a constant giveaway.
Right, kind of like
so
Greece.
their economy tanks, and their people were unprepared to make their own food, to have gardens. All of that, so they became so dependent of that system that it's very difficult for Venezuelan people now to live without that. And that's what I'm saying. Know how to grow a garden. Know how to grow a plant. know how to, make stuff from scratch. It again, it's not. See, to me, it's not so foreign, Daniel, because I had two old ladies that used to live behind my house when I
Uh-oh.
was growing up, and they were from that hardcore, like from 1800s up until through the Depression, and I used to go by their house, and when they were baking bread, I kid you not, they were cooking the bread in a wood oven, and I'd find them over there canning one day and doing this the other day. So I lived around people that this was just normal behavior to have your own food.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just normal. And we
Well,
got away from that. We're dependent too much on that grocery store, Daniel.
we're dependent on Walmart. That's even sadder.
I know, right? Because that makes us dependent on the Chinese.
Whoa. Hey, man, speaking of that, now, listen, you did identify yourself as a Bernie supporter. Nothing wrong with that. Like I say, I totally respect him. I mean, you know what? He's honest about what he believes. He doesn't have 30 years of scandals and a continuing criminal enterprise, but he is on the socialist order. And I believe there actually is biblical precedence for some socialist perceived type activities. Really, just take take care of the widows. It says it
That's
right
the
in there.
thing. No, thank you for bringing that up, because that's the one thing that smells bad about Bernie to me, is that constant reference to Pope Francis and that kind of stuff. And Francis has come right out and said that Marxism is the answer. Really, I mean, and I don't think Marxism is the answer. And I'll just point to two examples, or three or four. But the first one I like to point to is the Soviet Union. They were my enemy during the Cold War. We won that war, and we won that war because in at the end of the day, their society could not produce as much as we could produce. Is what it boiled down to.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we could produce more than their society could produce is because they had centralized planning, and we had bifurcated planning that was more like state level or local or company or corporate.
Mm-hmm.
We had all kinds of independence and liberty and all that, and we just produced more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We do. Similarly, China. What did they have to do in order to achieve centralization and the Marxist ideal? They had to do a purge where they killed 20 million people. Why do they always have to do that stuff, man? That doesn't sound right to me.
Man.
That doesn't sound
You know
like the
what?
government that you have.
If I no, on the alien part, if I was an alien and came down and I saw this, I said, why do humans hate each other so much? It's just really depressing. You don't see the animals behave like humans. It's almost embarrassing to be a human. Hey, speaking of that, what I was getting to, I was going to go to the all-out socialist government and economy of Venezuela. Should we expect that waves of Venezuelans are going to come up to the United States as a result? Economic immigrants?
I don't think so anymore. I think that the message and the political battle in the United States and the anti-immigration feeling that we share right now with with the Northern Europeans right now is pretty visceral. And I don't necessarily think people want to come here as much as they used to, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, I believe that we have to watch Venezuela because, if I've got 46 million people on food stamps, Daniel, and they depend on that to eat, and all of a sudden the government can't pay its bills, what's going to happen to them?
Mm. Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I love to help people, man, because this is my social democrat, right? Mm-hmm. If a person's in need, we help them. That's the way I was raised.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do.
If Billy Bob gets leukemia and he needs to go to the doctor, we give him rides to the doctor. Mm-hmm. The doctor, if he can't pay him in cash, then the village gets together and helps. It's a different way I got raised.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, here's
that was
the thing.
A type of socialism, but it was local. It was the community in control, and that's what I like about social democrats.
And I don't know. I forgot to follow the rest of the story, but did the United States bail out Puerto Rico? Are you familiar?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, my point there is they're just like Greece. They have, I think I read 2/3 of the island is on U.S. government assistance. They don't produce anything down there, and perhaps rather than bailing them out, they need to feel pain. And it sounds bad, but it's like your kid. If he doesn't feel pain for his actions, if you are always finding a way to not make them feel the pain of their own actions, they'll never learn and they'll never become better citizens. And so Venezuela, as far as a socialist government, they chose the wrong system to run a country. They need to feel that pain so they can divert more back to self-reliance, like you say. But if they all come up here and start getting checks, they haven't learned anything.
Right. Well, there you go. And see, here's where I'm asking for compassion for my brothers and sisters. Is yeah, the system definitely put a lot of people in that situation. But let's remember that the bankers in 2007 and 2008 stole several $1 trillion from us. If that $7 trillion was still in the economy right now, I think that poverty would be at an all-time low.
Right. And if the
Okay.
and if
So
the
who are the real bad guys? Is it the guy that has to take the food stamps because he can't find a job now because they dried up all of our jobs and all of that stuff through their global economic policies in the IMF? Do we blame that guy?
Mm.
I don't think it's right to blame that guy.
Well,
but I would say to that guy, listen, I'll help you for a little while and stuff, and I think that's right, and we should do that. But you got to do something on your own then. If you can't get a job, then you got to find something on your own to do.
Mm.
That's what Americans do.
Well, I would like to get our $4 trillion back we spent on endless Middle East wars, And I did hear somebody say that the amount of refugees coming from the Middle East heading to the United States, and probably obviously already in Europe, is just an automatic payment of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. But the payment, the money that we would spend to import all these people over here, I'm not saying going political as far as a Trump supporter, but I think he said, it sounds like a truism, that we could rebuild every inner city in the United States for the amount of money that we spend on so many other things, including importing immigrants in here who have no skill and only know how to, to go apply for food stamps. That's their only.
Well, here's the other side of that coin. So I just came out of the IT industry. I'm a media guy like you now, right? So,
okay.
And I'm running these groups and all that. So my life has changed dramatically. But I spent a lot of time in IT, and we have to bring in people from India and China and those places on the H-1Bs because there just aren't Americans trained. Why don't Americans know that there are 2 million open jobs in IT right now? Why don't they know that? Why isn't that just the obvious path? We're going to need another 20 million in 10 years if things go the way they do. I mean, there's plenty of jobs, but Americans are just so dumbed down that they don't think it through and understand where the jobs are and then retrain themselves and go. They just sit back and they start to whine, and then they just, look, if you need unemployment for, whatever period of time, I'm all for that, man. I really am. I think that we should help you get into a new space. There are plenty of new spaces out there to go. It's just a matter of finding it. And it's that encouragement we don't hear. It's always putting them down and then them putting us down, and you know what I mean? It's all this anger. Why can't we just be like, you know what, dude? I'll help you for a couple months. You get on your feet. We're all behind you. We'll make sure you're taken care of, your family. We really want to see you get on a job. Those kind of policies feel good to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You want to give them a hand up, not a handout, and you don't want it to be a lifestyle. You think those are obvious things. Self-reliance is almost an evil word now.
What happens when a person loses their dignity? That's the question, right? That's what we're really talking about, right? When does a person lose their dignity? And when that happens, I believe that's what puts you on your back.
All right. Hey, we got this question come in for you. It says, Steve, do you think that we will come in contact with the Nephilim or the elite that we never meet personally? How would we be able to identify one?
Well, again, I don't think it. I have no idea. Like I said, L.A. Marzulli. I think some others have made some good research on that I can't even touch. But I'm still debating if they're going to come out publicly or if they're going to stay behind the scenes yet. If you listen to Karen Hughes, you remember Karen Hughes?
Yes.
Did you ever have her on your show?
I don't think I have, but I know of her, and have you talked to her? I think I reached out to her, but I never could get her on the show. I'm checking. Go ahead.
And she was that person that worked for the World Bank, and she claimed that she had met some of these. She didn't call them aliens. She said they were critters. They were just a different race of humanoid, and they were in the Vatican. Did you hear her talk about that?
I knew it was something on those lines. I didn't know where. Was it the Vatican?
Yeah, they had to go to a banking meeting in the Vatican for some reason, and one of these guys showed up. And it was almost like they saw Karen in the room. It's like, oops,
Well, I knew she was a
we
whistleblower,
didn't know
so it's,
she was going to be here. What?
well, that kind of reminds me of getting back to the fear porn. Steve Quayle saying that there's going to be giants walking down the street. I mean, are these those?
I don't know. I listen to Steve and I listen to Tom Horn and all those guys, and they have a lot of research and they have this thing kind of wrapped up in terms of what they think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say about that. Could it happen? Yeah, sure, it could. It's a possibility.
Mm.
But
Well,
why would they scare the crap out of us like that? That would just put us on the defensive. It wouldn't be a good war strategy. If you show your hand like that, you wouldn't be surprising nobody.
do you think we'll ever see disclosure disclosure or contact?
Yeah. In fact, we'll see it, and then it will be a large subterfuge will come into play, and then a guy named Jesus Christ, Yeshua, is going to come in the clouds in glory. You're going to have plenty of contact then.
Wow. That sounds like hopefully a good contact there. Hey, Peter from Australia says, Steve, do you feel like we're on the precipice? And what changes do you foresee if Hillary the broom rider gets in?
Well, first of all, our credibility will be completely gone as a country. It's already suffered it's on life support. Our credibility right now is on life support. The United States can't afford to lose credibility any more than it has. Mm-hmm. We have enemies that want us dead, and these are powerful enemies, and we cannot afford to have such unrighteousness as the president of our country, Daniel. We just can't. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, I think that we are actually we are toying with the idea of being in world war. A lot of people don't know what a hawk Hillary is. She's part of the Soros side of the neocons, right? Yeah. And they want war just as much as anybody else. And you know what I mean? It's just they're just going to do they are doing their agenda right in front of us, and it's like nothing's being done to stop them.
Hey, did you know it just
and
came?
Sooner or later, the world's going to get pissed. Just like they got pissed at the Nazis, just like they got pissed at other, tyrannical societies that developed, and they're going to wage war on us, Daniel. And we've got to go back to our values. We were never that kind of country, man. That wasn't our gig in 1913. That wasn't our gig even in 1939. Why did it all of a sudden become our gig to be so greedy and so fixated on money and enslaved by banks and all that stuff? It didn't start happening until the 30s, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, just before the show, Steve, I had an epiphany that the father of lies evidently has a sister. Enough said.
Enough said. Well, and you know what? It's like, I don't even hate them. It's not even like that. It's just I hate lies. I hate lies. I hate liars. Yeah. Yeah. But I can't. I'm not allowed to hate Hillary. Hopefully, she'll find the Lord too.
Well, that's it, man. I mean, long as she is alive, she has a chance.
Yeah.
But
the damage that's being done, Daniel, is just on such an epic scale right now. Hey, have you heard anything lately? I'm sorry to turn into the interviewer here, but have you heard anything about that Saudi army that built up in Saudi Arabia, that multinational Sunni army that they built?
No,
Did you hear anything?
I have not caught wind of that. Sunni army?
Yeah, they've got 1,000 tanks, 300,000 troops. Have you caught wind of that yet?
No, I haven't, but I guarantee you those U.S.-made tanks.
Exercises in Saudi Arabia, and the idea is that they might be trying to invade Syria soon.
I don't know, but it's pretty scary that Iran said they have 100,000 missiles ready to rain down on Israel. I mean, it's spooky, and I guarantee you those are American-made. After Obama freed up $150 billion, they can buy all kinds of weapons over there now.
I know, and so we just gotta, like I said, we gotta stick together, man. I mean, we folks, good folk, have to stick together, and that's the message I got about this. All these events leading to this event, leading to the aftermath, is the best thing we can do is stick together. That's the best thing we can do.
Well, and that's one advantage of social media and shows like yours and mine is that we do allow platforms for people to stick together and discover the truth, really. And then once we have the truth, each of us has a decision to make what to do with that truth. So I think, talk about 1,000 points of light. Well, maybe there's tens of millions of little points of light that can overwhelm the darkness that it seems to be blanketing our country and our world.
Yeah, and remember though, we already, well, at least in my world, in the prophecies that I look at in the Christian world, is that it does promise, it does say that there's going to be a very dark hour, okay? But at the end of the day, we will see that light, Daniel. Light will win. It always wins.
Well, nobody's ever went into a room and turned the darkness on, that's for sure.
That's exactly my point. Thank you.
All right. Well, Steve, listen, we're getting near the end of the broadcast. I want to make sure, have you touched on every subject or made every comment that you want to make? Any kind of finishing comments you'd like to make? You go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'm serious, man. It's a spiritual issue first, and then it's a physical issue second. So spiritually, man, really get down and try to get yourself connected with the source of all things. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, just be common sense about it. We already know that the ocean's going to rise at least 9 to 10 feet over the next 10 years. That's what the climate scientists are telling us. And if we do have this event with as the Bible predicts, with these asteroids and that kind of thing, we will have tsunamis and all that kind of stuff. That happens, right? Mm-hmm, yeah. So doesn't it just make sense to be prepared to move away from the coast or have food so that you can travel away from damage if that happens in your area? Mm-hmm. So spiritual and physical, just be prepared, man. I'm not asking you to go out and build a compound or anything, just be prepared.
Hey, have you seen that map that's been around the internet for a while about when the oceans rise and the continental United States kind of splits or ocean comes up through the middle? Have you seen that? And do you feel like you're in an area that keeps you in high ground where you are right now?
Yeah. So, right now I'm at about 1,200 feet. It's a very rare spot of Wisconsin, a little small spot. The rest of Wisconsin supposedly is going to be underwater. Mm-hmm. And so I'm planning on an oceanfront view. I joke about. That's what I'll have here.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I asked you this last time, Steve. I want to ask you now, though. Where you are, did you just land there because of a piece of property that you found and you just kind of fell into it? Or did you specifically look at a piece of property that gives you some suitability for survival?
It's a long, arduous story. I was led here. I woke up when I looked around me. I woke up and I was on this farm. It was like, Lord, you've been preparing me to help people for a long time, haven't you?
So
that's what happened to me.
You're in a farm situation?
I am. I'm on a big farm that I rent the house and the compound, and I have my horses and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the landowner here is a generous, wonderful man, and he gives me oversight of 280 acres.
Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about a long, arduous story, did you just give me the short version of that? Do you feel like you were supernaturally led there?
I was, but it was a story of me having my ego smashed, Daniel. And the testimony goes as follows: I was a high-rising, super champ, Turk, wanted to make $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, $1 billion, whatever I could make, money focused, but very spiritual, right? Very spiritual. I went to Bible school, all that kind of stuff. I had all that background, but my ego stank like to high heaven, man. So in the process of the Lord taking away everything I had, everything I ever had, I built up, and wiping me down to nothing, and then leading me to this farm, then he let me slowly build my life back up again. But it's not any longer built on the foundation of mammon. It's built on the foundation of trust in him. And I'm so much happier, more secure, no debt. All of those things are gone because of him.
Wow.
And that's, again, that's a story because the Bible promises us that if you trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, acknowledge him in all your ways, he promises to direct your path. Mm-hmm. But in the case of Steve Olson, I couldn't acknowledge him in all my ways for a period of time because I was too in love with myself. And so in that journey of taking everything away, my real estate, my houses, my cars, everything, I was almost like a homeless guy for a period of time, and then I was placed on this farm supernaturally. And I had the resources and all that miraculously. All that stuff happened. And now I'm a very solid guy. The community loves me here. I like the local police. I have relationships with hundreds of people around here. I'm an accepted member of the community, and I am so happy that I'm here. I just can't tell you how happy I am to be here.
Are you married?
Yes, I have a wife and 2 sons.
Was she with you on this supernatural journey that led you where you are, or did you meet her after you established?
No, she and I got actually met in Bible school. So we come from that kind of background.
Mm-hmm.
But Lisa's been very skeptical of this. My wife has been very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very radical thing for her to see me research this stuff and look at her and say things that I was saying. Mm-hmm. And it scared her. And I understand that. I really get it. It scares people. It's not pretty to look at it. It's fascinating, but it's not pretty. And it's not good news, right? So I get it.
Well, it's not really fearful.
It's common for people that that research this for their spouses not to be along on the ride with them, though. So it's normal.
Okay. Is she okay? Is she with you now on that, or is she still learning, or she just say it's your thing? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's my thing. Go ahead. And then the second thing is she'll come in and look at stuff and she'll ask me for updates, but it's just too much for her to handle, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, no, it would be for and that may not be her role, in that case. And I don't mean to get personal, but I just like to know.
I don't judge either, man. I'm not judging her for that at all. I really love her. We're together.
Right.
We're married. I mean, Daniel, are you married?
No.
Okay, so have you ever been married?
Yes.
So you know what I mean when I say we're married?
Yes.
Okay. All right, move on.
All right.
There's no way to get along 100% of the time with somebody, guys. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, I appreciate your testimony there, and I always like to know how people get to where they are, and a little bit of their personal history. And as far as supernaturally being led, is somebody watching the show, they may not have that feeling that they've been supernaturally led anywhere, and they may want to know how they could hear anything supernatural to begin with. Do you feel like you said it was a learning curve that you went through? Is it that somebody who hasn't been supernaturally led has maybe an ego issue? I mean, can't make a religion out of it, but
I don't want my testimony to be projected on anybody else. Each person's experience is different and unique. Okay, in my case, I first met the Lord before all of the money and everything. I was very young, and I ran into Him face to face, and was powerfully, miraculously filled with the Holy Spirit. Went to Bible school, did all those things, and then fell away from Him. I just didn't care anymore. I was more interested in making sure I had a house. At first, it was all because I wanted it for my family, and then it started becoming because I wanted it for me and my ego and all that stuff, and God just hates that. So in my personal experience, for me to get led to where I was, He had to take me through a chastisement of sorts. But no, at any point am I not thankful for all of that? I'm very thankful. It's like I'm thankful that my father, when I was a young kid, didn't let me drive a car when I was 2. You know what I mean?
Well, my point is, if there are things coming on the earth, do people need to be looking for supernatural guidance to go somewhere?
I would say prayer. Yeah, right. So prayer to me is the ultimate thing. And what I mean by prayer, a lot of people think I might mean praying the rosary, or they might think that I'm talking about saying the Lord's Prayer like you might say in a church or something like that. No, when I'm talking about praying, guys, I'm talking about you get really super honest with God, and you speak to Him, and you just speak to Him, and you say, listen, this is the way I feel about this, this, and this. And you just tell Him everything. Pour your heart out to Him. What are you hurting about? What are you thinking about? What are you worried about? Do you hate Him? Did something happen to you in life where somebody died, or you lost somebody that hurt you so badly that you turned your back on God? Listen to me. He does forgive you for all of that. He forgives you for turning your back. He forgives you for all that stuff. He's just saying, come back to me right now. He'll take you in like a hen takes in its chicks, man. He will not reject any one of you. And then if you take it from that attitude where you speak honestly and boldly and frankly to him and say anything you want to him, he can handle it. He's a big boy. He can take it. I promise you that if you will do that, just tell him everything, that he will talk to you. I promise you.
Okay. All right, people out there with questions like that, you heard it, that you will get. So, Steve, you're saying that if you ask, you will receive, you will hear.
Right. You have to be, though. See, the way you have to approach God, though, guys, is you have to believe that he exists, and that means that you have to believe. It's really hard for humans to believe this sometimes, because you've been God so long, you just can't believe that there could be another one. I get it. You've been on the seat so long, you just can't imagine that there'd be a bigger one. But I'm telling you, there is. And he will forgive you for sitting on that seat. You haven't been doing so well on that seat, have you? Trust me, if you're sitting in that seat, you're not having a happy ride.
Wow.
Right?
That'd be it.
So it's all about who's going to be God at the end of the day. And that's why when I say you must believe God is, and he's a rewarder of those who seek him, it's promised. It's promised. So
Okay.
if you'll seek him, he will reward you with what? You will find him.
Well, Chuck,
He will reward you with finding him.
in the live chat, Chuck says God has always answered my prayer. So basically, you're saying being a prayerful, humble attitude, and then you just may receive some supernatural guidance in what decisions to make.
I believe you will. I will tell you that I have.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good advice, because what you're saying is coming on the earth. People, they should be seeking the answers to that. And, I agree with you that God won't turn anyone away when they ask a question with humility, and also be ready for the answer too. Because I would think that sometimes the answer is not what we want to hear. Would you say, Steve?
I say that too, right? And the other thing you got to realize is that there's a part in the Bible, Dan. I didn't mean this to turn into a preaching session, by the way, but I really want to say this.
Okay, go ahead.
The bottom line on this whole Ten Commandments thing, for example, and it's really important that people get this, because it's missed by almost every religion, Christian denomination rather, and that is, Paul says that we were created in vanity in hopes that we would come to the glorious liberty of the sons of God. What in the hell does that mean? He created us subject to vanity in hopes that we would come to the glorious liberty of the sons of God. What it means is that God knew we would fail. God knew. He created us to fail. He created us to fail without him. So if you're failing and you're without him, it was hoped, God said in his word, like the law, for example, if you come up against the Ten Commandments and you're dead honest, and you're honest and you read that Ten Commandments, well, every human being on this planet has violated one of them. And if you've wanted to do one of them, Jesus said, you're guilty of all of them. So how in the heck are you going to make that standard? It was never meant to be your standard. It was meant to be your whipping stick, to show you can't do it. That's the way you approach God. You never approach God saying, I did all your commandments, I have been a good man all my life. You know what's going to happen to you? Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I've never known you. And the key idea there is he never knew you. He wants to get to know us.
Well, that's like the Old Testament. They were asking for, what can we do? Give us a set of rules that we can do to be holy, to get in, and he gave them a set of rules, but they found out that they really couldn't do them. And so it came to the conclusion they needed an intercessor, somebody to take their place, somebody who could pay the debt that they could not pay. And that brought them to the New Testament, where the answer was given.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I've learned.
So, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, dead space. But at the end of the day, it's all connected. All of this is connected together, and to me, it's a mega war. And again, I took a lot more time than you probably intended, but it is a cosmic war, and we really want you to come to our side.
Well, I do admit I kind of prodded you. I wanted you to open up like that, Steve, because I knew that was in you, and you had to get it out. I was just trying to help you out.
Thank you, sir. Because really, people need to hear this: that God is not an asshole. He really isn't.
Can I quote you on that?
You sure can. And yeah, I'm base. I'm gruff. I don't go to churches and stuff because I'm this way. But God likes me, man. He likes me a lot.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And he doesn't care if I say he's not an asshole. He doesn't get mad about that. He thinks it's funny.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny to hear too. You just don't really hear that kind of talk. But that's interesting.
Well, he's not, man. He's not. And everybody wants to make him into this baby ham fist 2-year-old god that vengefully kills everybody. Come on, man. Really? Shut up.
He eventually kills everybody. Okay. Steve Olson, hey, we are at the end of the broadcast. Anything else you'd like to say? Here, one more time. To get everything
I'm
out.
good, Daniel. Thank you for having me on the show. I can't wait to come back on again sometime soon.
And that was my question. Steve Olson, I appreciate you coming on the broadcast, and we will have you back.
Awesome.
All right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, sir.
You too. All right, everybody. That was Steve Olson back on the Edge television broadcast. We have a previous interview with him that is on the Edge's website. Just scroll down. You'll see it still in there. And Sugarfoot says, Steve, you're a funny guy. And Chuck in Florida says, great show. Dreamwalker says, Jesus love, always be encouraged. Interesting that term there because seems everybody needs some encouragement. Next week's guest to be announced. We have a number of them just waiting to solidify the dates. We'll have them up here shortly within the week. This program will begin to replay in the main player directly after I log off here. And I appreciate everyone's questions. And we definitely want to have Steve. He's Steve Olson. He's right at the top of my list, man, of great guests to have back on the show. So we'll have him back on the show. Chuck in Florida says, where is the Colonel? He must have went deep, man. He's off the grid. I can't get hold of him. All of a sudden it popped up in my Facebook that is his birthday. So he said, tell Greg Gingrich, happy birthday. Well, I can't communicate with him, so I didn't even know why he still evidently has that still going out there. But I've tried to get him back on the program, and if he rematerializes, we'll have the Colonel back on the program. Speaking of that, if we haven't had a guest on the show you'd like to see, just drop me a note at edgeam@yahoo.com. Also, you can actually put it in the Fast Blast, or there's a link, because that Fast Blast is always activated. And so you can always send things that way. I get them anytime you send them. And there's also a link that says suggest a guest at the top of the page. Dreamwalker says use your secret Skype channel. We're going to do that for you. Well, we have reached the end of the broadcast. Appreciate everybody. Daniel for the Edge. Bye-bye.